The past is history, the future is a mystery. This moment is a gift. That's why they call it the present. Our next guest, Rhonda Victoor, is all about the present. Her company, Incite Coaching, helps individuals and organizations to achieve their highest potential by being connected to themselves in the present. Rhonda is here today to explain what this means, why it's so important, and the top 3 ways to come into the present. Welcome, Rhonda.
Thanks for having me.
So great to have you here. So explain to me what we're talking about with conscious communication.
The groups that I work with, leaders from all different industries, the issue that they struggle with the most is communicating not only effectively, but in a way that influences and creates collaboration. So when I created conscious communication as this umbrella for the work that I do, it was to help them to realize that it's not an elaborate process of going through step by step by step by step that they need to be aware of when they're leading their teams or working with clients. It's about coming into consciousness, which is another way of being really present and aware of what's happening within them, most importantly, and what's happening around them.
What are your thoughts on this concept that, you know, business and your work environment is over here and your home environment and your private life is over here? I personally don't buy into that. What do you think? Because you're a business coach primarily. What's the difference between a business coach and a personal coach, and how often does that cross over in the real world?
In my real world, they're constantly crossing over. It's really like pouring 2 different liquids into separate sides of a bowl and expecting them to stay apart from one another. They can't stay apart. One of the things that people will often notice as we're getting into coaching is that when we begin, they'll have a handful, maybe 3 primary goals that they've set for their business growth. And within the first session or 2, we're diving really deep into personal challenges. And they quickly realize that when those are addressed, there's this beautiful ripple that's happening in their business life. So as we're addressing one, the other is being absolutely impacted. So even though my work is as a leadership coach, we're getting into the emotional pieces, we're getting into the personal elements and going deeper so that all of parts of their lives can be impacted.
So let's get back to this discussion about being in the present. It sounds simple, and I know that for myself, that's something I've quote unquote struggled with. Well, first of all, in my first 20 or 30 years, I didn't even realize I wasn't in the present. So I was just asleep at the wheel. Once it was, exposed to me, this whole idea of being consciously in the present moment, and you start to work on that, it's amazing the results that can flow from that. What would you say are can you give us like your top 3 ways that you teach people or coach people how to become more in the present moment?
Absolutely, yeah. So there's 3 words that I use, and I use it throughout my practice: breathe, notice, choose. And each of those words really is a step in the process. So those are the 3 that I'd encourage you to play with. So breathe being the first. When we're in an experience of emotional hijack, which happens up to 12 times every hour, it's happening every 5 minutes, we're being triggered by something else. When that happens, the fastest way to return back into presence is through breath.
Emotional hijack.
Yes.
And you're being hijacked, and the hijackers are your own past experiences and things that trigger you.
Exactly.
Amazing. That's a beautiful way to put it. Okay, so I'm emotionally hijacked. I notice it. Well, maybe I don't notice it. I'm just getting tensed up. So breathe, what do you mean?
Yeah, deep, slow breath will reverse the actual hormonal process that's happened. When we're triggered, and it could be triggered with excitement, but most often it's triggered with fear or anxiety about something. When we're triggered, we have this release of hormones that gets us ready to fight, flight, freeze.
Right.
It prepares us for that. So slow, deep breath will actually reverse that process and help our bodies come back into a calm place so that we can begin to quiet our mind. So I teach all of my leadership clients the Big 10, which is 10 slow in and out breaths, which you can do while you're sitting at a boardroom table or across from a client. If you're alone in your office, you could actually close your eyes and have a more full experience of it, but you can do it. You could do it while we're sitting here having this conversation.
It's funny, when you mentioned breathing, I noticed myself breathing differently. But anyway, so breath.
Breath
then,
is the first.
yeah.
Notice is the second. So we need to notice what's actually going on within us. When we're in an experience of emotional hijack, we think we're being very rational, and in fact, we are thinking with our rational brain, but we're using that rational brain with a whole, it's like a whole pitcher of emotion poured over it. So there's a sticky mess over top of the rational brain, and we need to wash that away. So notice I've been hijacked, and in the process of noticing, it'll probably be a physical cue that alerts you. So begin to notice what parts of your body tenses up when you're triggered by something, and that becomes your red flag. So begin to notice your own internal triggers so that you become the one that is consciously choosing. And that's the third element. Breathe, notice, choose. Consciously choose how to move forward in your own time. We often feel a real sense of urgency when we've been hijacked or when we're thrown off. We get this sense of urgency, and we end up making choice too quickly, or we choose in the direction of old patterns that we know, if we were to pause, aren't actually serving us well. So consciously choose. I like to invite people to choose in between the two stuck points. So usually we have the status quo and we have the opposite that we're very afraid of, and we feel like we need to choose one of those. There's always a series of other options in between. So consciously choose between the stuck points rather than choosing one of those old patterns.
Very cool. Speaking of time, we're out of it. So I just want to thank you so much for joining us. I learned a lot, and I didn't get triggered or hijacked even once. Thank you for being here. Real pleasure.
Great to be here with you. Thanks, Randy.